everybody could deal with some more early, mid and late stage armbar defense. People get into that position where they're in the spiderweb position and they go, oh shit, I'm about to get submitted. Instead of thinking, oh shit, I'm about to get submitted, these are some principles that you can use reliably every single time, depending on where their hands are, depending on what grips they're using, how they're attempting to finish you. So hopefully you get out of more than less. So something we don't go through very often is early, mid and late defense escapes for submissions. And you guys might get to a position where you think, if somebody gets us into an armbar position, like they do in EBI rules, is called like nice heel in the face, like the spiderweb position, something that looks like this. Obviously I wouldn't be using a 10 finger, but most people think that if they get to this stage, they're moments away from tapping and they have no idea what to do here. So what we're gonna do today, we're gonna go through a bunch of different grip sequences, a bunch of different escapes, so that when you find yourself in an armbar position next time, you won't be freaking out. You'll actually have a better degree of escape. Now, something to say just at the beginning of this is that when you guys are doing these escapes, we're gonna do a positional round at the end of the lesson. But when you're doing these escapes, make sure that your partner that you're with who's applying the armbar isn't so hell-bent on destroying the ligaments in your arm. And what I mean by that is, if I wanted to do armbar escapes, I could use Juicy in a round and I'd be completely safe because I know he's not going to completely destroy my elbow. If you're using this with a white belt who's less experienced, who uses way too much force, and we would call them a spastic, you're actually the best white belt we have. It's unfair for you to, you're a spaz and you're not a white belt. But if you are using your training partner effectively to work late stage defense escapes, you might be terrified to go into an extended arm position if you know that they're going to try and hurt you. So when you are doing armbar escapes, it's very important to articulate it to your partner that you want them to hold the position for 3 to 5 seconds, no less. That'll give you time to escape, of which throw your ego out the door and just say, look, you got me, I'm going to tap. But if they give you that 3 to 5 second window, you'll actually be able to use the escapes that we're using today. And so this is just a preface if you are to use this in training, which we'll do it later at the session. So when we're in an armbar position, there's a couple of different leg configurations. We're not going to go over all of them today just for simplicity's sake. This is full juji. Juicy Jesh has a leg across my torso and he has a leg across my face. There's many others, but this is what we're going to use today. What we're going to think about in this first portion is the many grips that I can use with my hands. So the grips that I can start to use are 10 finger, which is the longest, palm to palm, which is the second longest, wrist to wrist, obviously it's getting shorter and shorter, and then I can go figure 4 bicep with my hand underneath the crossface leg. Now this is the shortest grip, but it's also the most robust and the most difficult to break. This is the longest grip, it's the most mobile, but it's somewhat the easiest to break. So when you're thinking about gripping sequences on these escapes that I'm going to show you, this is what we have to consider. If you're really scared of getting your arm extended, this is probably a really good mechanism to stop that from happening. And so we'll start with the less terrifying escapes first, and we'll work our way up to the more terrifying escapes. So we find ourselves in an armbar position, we choose the figure 4 grip. This is really robust, it's really strong. You've got your arm that could potentially be broken underneath a secondary arm, and that's underneath his leg. Most people don't know how to get rid of this, so you're in a pretty safe spot. Now, depending on which hand Juicy decides to post with, he's got 2 options, right? He can take his left arm in through my bicep, and he can take a bottom hand post, of which is going to be quite difficult for me to start to come up into him because that's where he's posting. If he takes his right arm through and he puts his left hand over my head, it's going to be much easier for me to start to come up because his post isn't that direction, but I'm not going to be able to take him this way. So you have to do a little bit of thinking here when you're in this position. You're going to be able to use your hand, or your head rather, to see which arm does he have up. We'll go with this one first. So if he's got a top hand post, we're going to use a hip direction escape. If he's got a bottom hand post, we're going to use a head direction escape. We'll go over that one next. So for the purpose of demonstration here, he's got a top hand post. What I'm going to start to do is start to take him over where his post isn't. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get my hips as parallel as possible with him rather than being him perpendicular across me. And I'm going to start to pendulum my body upwards, taking him in the direction of where his post isn't. Once I get here, it's not going to be enough for me to just try and come up to my knees because a strong back heel of his top leg and his crossface leg is going to send me right back down. The way that I stop this is that I continue to walk my hips down, out and away so it takes the juice out of this crossface leg. I'm going to scissor my hips and then I'm going to start to come up if he tries to cross face me back down this way, I'm already above him. It's going to be extremely difficult. Once I get to this position, it's all about stacking his hips over his head, bringing your far knee up and wedging over the top. Now, I can't just rip out of this position all willy-nilly, because if I take my left hand away and Juicy throws this knee above my ear, it doesn't matter how strong I am, hold on, doesn't matter how strong I am, I will not be able to pull my elbow free from this grip. If his knee cannot contact near my ear, it doesn't matter how weak I am, I will always be able to pull this out. So it's very important that you don't just let go. He shoots his ear up behind your head and you try and pull out and he breaks you. So when we're in the figure 4 position, we have to do a couple of things. The easiest way to get out of this is continually stack his hips up over his head and use your knee as a wedge. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to exchange my arm that could be broken to the back of this side. Now I'm pretty much in a completely safe position. I can start to widen his legs. I can start to continually stack him. He's not going to like this. And his ability to start to get this knee to my head is obviously very, very difficult, of which I can start to pull my elbow free. So let's go over that. We've decided that arm bars are scary. Fair enough. We're going to use the most robust grip that we can. It's the figure 4. We've got our hand underneath the cross-face leg, and our primary hand is covered by our secondary bicep. He's got a top hand post, which means going that direction is going to be relatively useless. So we start to take him where his post isn't. I don't just try and come up from here. A big back heel will send me straight back to where I came from. So I rotate him forwards. I turn my hips towards where I'm going to be parallel. I scissor my legs so that I can now build height. Once I start to build height here, I want to use my outside knee up underneath his tailbone so I can wedge him in position. I don't just let go of this and get my arm broken. That would be stupid. I do start to stack his hips up nice and high over his head, replace my hand in the back of his knee and continue to send him this direction. As long as this knee can't get near my ear, I'm completely safe to rip my elbow out. One more time. I lock up my grip. He can't go upwards. I look at his hand, no problem. I start to go down. I start to walk my hips down, out and away, scissoring my legs. I come up, I build height. I block his hip with my knee. I don't just let go from here, I'll get broken. I continually stack his head over. I switch my grips. I continue to put a C post in the back of his ankle. Now I can rotate my elbow nice and safely. Let's give that a go. Let's continue to use the same grip, except this time he has a bottom hand post. He's negating our ability to send him that direction. You can, if you would like to, try and muscle through this, but it's going to be effectively useless. So if we can't take him down, we can always take him up. So what we're going to do, even if, usually people are more worried about breaking the grip when they're in the top position here than they are keeping their legs together, or at least keeping their their hips connected to my shoulder joint, which is the most important thing for an armbar. So you're actually going to get the jump on them here a little bit. Their cross-face leg is going to be quite lax, and so you can start to send them over that direction quite easily. In the event that they're quite good and they're at an advanced level, even if they do have a tight cross-face leg, you're just going to pull your chin to your chest and shuck your head and your shoulders all together in one little concaved ball. And then as soon as you get this off the top of your forehead and your head can start to raise, your chin can start to come to your chest, you're going to immediately hit a bridge and you're going to send him up and over this direction. Once your shoulder line is up over the top of his leg, he can't break you. He needs his hips rather connected to my shoulders, and he needs to be over the front of me to stop me from coming up or stop me from continuing to go over. We're not going to come up this time. We've already done that. We're going to start to continue to shoulder walk our way up and over the top of his bottom leg. At this stage, you're completely free from the armbar, but if you try and come up at this stage, he can feed you into triangles and he can start to go into re-attacks. So because his head is much higher than ours at this stage, we're not even going to attempt to come up. We're going to stay where we are. We're going to wait for him to come up. And now I've momentarily wedged his leg by having my shoulders over the top of his leg, so he's going to find it slightly difficult, but we can take advantage of that. We're going to take a C post down the front of his ankle, and we're going to keep this arm as a cross frame across the side of his hip. When Juicy starts to come up and win the head height battle, I'm going to hip escape away and then pull myself into a Rimiashi Garami. So I'll show you guys on this side this time. You want to come on this side? Thank you. We've got the same grip as before, except he's got a bottom hand post. I'm not going to bother laboring to try and come up because it's going to be extremely difficult, even with a significant weight advantage. If he does a good job at back heeling, I need to do a good job at pulling my chin to my chest. So I'm going to shuck him forwards, and I'm going to pull my shoulders and everything forwards and concave my body. I'm then going to start to hit a bridge, keeping my hands locked until I get my shoulders up and over the top of his leg. At this stage, the armbar is completely lost, and he's going to try and come up on top of me to salvage what he can. If I try and come up on top of him, his head is taller than mine. His head is much higher. I'm never going to win this race. And in some positions, my arm is in a lot of danger. He might feed into flying triangles or something of that variety, especially as I start to come up. Against better guys, this will start to happen. It's a dangerous and a bad idea. So we're not even going to try and win the head height battle. We're going to lay over this leg. We're going to allow him to come up on top of us. We're going to scoot our hips away, keeping our cross frame involved, and placing ourselves into Arimi Ashigurami, where we're now in an offensive position instead of defense. So let's give that a go. So we're going to start to open up our grip a little bit more. Instead of using the figure 4 grip, we're going to use the most mobile grip, but much less robust. So obviously I talked about the fact that we were doing the strongest, the most betterest, for all the dictionary wizards out here. The most betterest grip here, the strongest, but least mobile. You're actually putting yourself into this position and leaving yourself here just because you're tightening up. Now, every time you extend that grip, whether you go wrist to wrist, gable, or 10 finger, you are opening yourself to an ease of him breaking your grip, but you're also opening up a fair degree of mobility. So the next escape I'm going to show you is dealing with the torso leg. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the mobility of this grip to wedge our elbow up underneath Juicy's torso leg. I'm going to take a slight backwards roll over my left, and I'm going to capture his leg. It doesn't matter how short his legs are, it doesn't matter how immobile you are, you will always be able to capture this leg. Now, think of the difference. If I'm in this grip, where my elbow is much tighter, I've got a much stronger grip, but I can't actually get my elbow underneath his leg. I will be able to do it if I'm wrist to wrist. It's going to be slightly harder. If I'm palm to palm or gable, if I'm wrist to wrist, it'll be slightly harder. I won't get as much purchase. So you are going to have to get comfortable with the fact that this is easier to break, but it's going to be the thing that actually gets you out. So we get our elbow underneath his heel right here. We take a slight backwards roll and we capture. Notice how my hands don't have to come undone for the entirety of this. We're going to look at a hands open escape next, which is what's considered late stage, but you don't have to be too terrified because you're going to be able to perform this with locked hands the entire time. So when I get to this position, he's going to try and start extending me because he knows that the arm bar is basically free here. So it doesn't matter how hard his back heel is, he's lost the ability to break me over the bottom hip, which is the most important. So from here, I should be able to turn my shoulder and my elbow and pull my elbow towards my ribs. Unless he's got full extension on my arm and in very, very impressive grip strength, he's going to find it extremely difficult to maintain my shoulder line at this stage because I'm just going to be more mobile than him, and he doesn't have an ability to stop me from moving with his torso leg. It doesn't really matter about the cross-face leg in this instance. So one more time, this one's pretty simple. 10 finger, most mobile grip, probably one of the weaker ones. We're going to get our elbow underneath his heel. We're going to take a slight backwards roll and then wedge his feet between our knees. I'm going to start to move up towards my shoulder on my side here, and I'm going to start to pull my elbow down towards the floor. If he can stop you from doing this and extend your arm and break you while you're doing this, I'll be very, very impressed. Remember what we spoke about beforehand? His hips have to stay connected to my shoulder. Right now, my shoulder has a very big distance between his hip line, and so theoretically, I should be safe from the armbar. Again, I would be very impressed if someone can fully extend you from here. Even if he does try and fully extend me from here, my shoulder's nowhere to be seen. He might cramp my forearm, but he's definitely not going to break my arm. Let's give this a go. Okay, so we've gone through the most robust grip, the strongest one. We've gone through the most mobile one. This grip is going to be no grip at all. It's going to be the most terrifying for you guys to learn, but like I said in the start of the lesson, if you get a trusted training partner that's not going to immediately turn your elbow inside out, you will actually be able to use this at some stage. So this is going to be a turnout grip or a turnout escape or rolling escape or hitchhiker escape, whatever you want to call it, where we're going to focus on taking our hand towards the top shoulder as soon as we let go of our grip. Now, there's two really important details that I didn't realize that I absolutely blatantly plagiarized from Gordon last night, and I'm teaching you now. One of which is taking your palm, that's the armbar hand, up towards the ceiling. Reason being is that when I let go of my grip, I'm already in the perfect position to start to turn out. If I switch my hand, I've got to make an effort to rotate my hand back over as I start to escape. If my palm is facing the ceiling, I don't have to worry about that. It's already in the perfect position. It's one less thing I have to worry about while my elbow gets destroyed, or lack of getting destroyed. Second thing is that I want to let go once I feel my elbow getting towards 90 degrees. I don't want to let him just continue to follow me all the way down with a bunch of tension. So what I mean by letting go is letting my arm go loose, like a loose rope, for instance. It's much more difficult for Juicy to track the movement of my arm when there's no tension in it at all, and I can rotate my wrist and my thumb. We'll play a game here. Don't break me, but we'll play a game here. If I go full tension and he breaks my grip and I start to hang on as hard as I can, doesn't matter how strong I am, it's a very even line going all the way straight down where he can map that perfectly. Let's go again. I'll go tense until I get to 90 degrees and then I'll go loose. See how easy it was for me to get my wrist down to the floor? Let's go again. I'll take my wrist the other way. Go. Tension, 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 tension. See how Juicy actually falls with my arm? All I'm doing is I'm getting towards a position where my elbow gets towards 90 degrees. I'm taking the tension out and then I'm turning before he gets the chance to follow me. If I don't and I try and tense, it's very easy for him to map where my arm, even if I turn my wrist, it's very easy for him to control my arm and break me. So yes, this might be scary the first time you do it, but once we drill it several times, you'll get used to it and you'll realize that it's actually your window of opportunity for escaping. So palm up to the ceiling, 10 finger grip. We're gonna resist until we get to 90 degrees. We're gonna let him think he's winning the battle. As soon as we get to 90 degrees or more, I'm gonna undo my hand and throw my knuckles to his top shoulder. Once I throw my knuckles to his top shoulder, I point my hand down. I'm gonna start to hit my turning escape. Now what that means is I'm going to take my shoulders perpendicular to the mat and I'm going to walk. I'm going to keep walking, I'm going to keep walking, I'm going to look where I'm going. I'm going to start to get towards this position, of which I can now turn my elbow down to the floor and seamlessly escape. So 10 finger grip, palm facing towards the ceiling of the arm that was potentially getting broken, so we don't have too much to think about. We're going to start to create tension. We're going to grip. We don't want him to just break our arm immediately, so we're going to grip, 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 grip. He's going to start breaking. He's going to start moving. Tension, tension, tension. All of a sudden, the tension goes out and away. If you can reach these feet, definitely do so and start to pass them off. As you look the way you're going, you walk. You continue to walk. You continue to walk. You get to your knees. You build height. See how my elbow is not in a breaking position? If he tries to break me from here, his hips go towards the ceiling, right? Everyone can agree on that. That's the way that he extends. If my elbow isn't pointed at the floor, he can't break me. My elbow is pointed towards his right hip at this stage. If he tries to break me, he can put as much tension into this arm as possible. It's not going to break. And what was the key thing that I spoke about beforehand that makes an armbar good? Hips connected to the shoulder. My shoulder's much higher above his hips at this stage. Should be very easy for me to limp out of here and destroy his ability to break my arm. Let's give that a go. So Juicy puts a lot of tension in my arm. I fight it for a second. I throw my knuckles to the top shoulder. I turn out, I walk my hips up and over the top. Now, 10th Planet Lukey will be getting his pants wet because there's an omoplata here. If Juicy throws his heels to the right side of my face, yeah, exactly right. He can start to go into omoplata, and now we're continually in a defensive cycle. So when we do get to that position, throw your feet back. When we do get to this position where we're safe from the armbar, we do have to recognize there's an omoplata and there's even a triangle follow-up. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come around the corner slightly, and then we're gonna wedge our same side knee next to our knee and our elbow. So we're trying to connect our knee and elbow as much as possible. When Juicy tries to claim my shoulder here, it's gonna be extremely difficult because my knee is wedging his femur in place and he can't actually climb his hips up and over my shoulder where he wants them to start to send me face down. So when you do get to the turnout, it's about putting your knee behind his knee to wedge him in place. Now, if I do a bad job at blocking the secondary follow-up, which is the triangle defense, when I let his leg come around my face on this side, and he distracts that knee and elbow connection, I could also be in trouble here. So what we've got to recognize is that just because we defeat the omoplata doesn't mean we defeat the triangle. I'm gonna sit all my weight over my right side, and I'm just gonna preemptively self-frame so that if he does go for a triangle here, he doesn't have any connection towards my neck, and I'm in a really good spot to defend here. Once I'm here, I'm not out. I'm gonna start to generate immediate offense by passing his guard. I'm gonna take this as a cross scoop. I'm gonna put my ear all the way to the top of his quad. I'm gonna start to shift him around, claiming the inside space between his knees and his ribs. So, off the back of the successful turnout escape, we find ourselves in a bit of a dilemma still. We throw our knuckles all the way to the top shoulder, we walk all the way around. Juicy decides he wants to go omoplata. I'm privy to that. I keep my elbow and my knee connected as much as possible. He goes, okay, the omoplata's not on, I'm gonna go triangle. I block that with a self frame. Now I've defended all of his successful attacks. He's got nothing left to offer me. I take my hand outside the line of his hip and I cup. I put my head underneath, I glue my ear all the way to the top of his quad, and I can either circle all the way around, but the better option is to start to pull my elbow in between his hips and pull him through. Once my head is in the way of his knee and his torso, he's not going to be able to put his knee, he's not going to be able to close this space, so I'm going to be able to put my hand on the inside for a tight waist, and I should be good to go. So let's quickly run through that, and then we'll start training. What sleep paralysis for Gracie Baja students looks like. All right,